we normally do box office talk, but we kind of decided that other than Deadpool and Wolverine made all the money, there's really nothing much else we can talk about there.
Right. I mean, I've kind of noticed that a lot of our box office talk lately has been, oh, that did better than expected.
Yeah,
How interesting.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
the other thing is that, well, clearly Marvel doesn't want us to focus too much uh, on Wolverine and Deadpool because the weekend had just finished. The headlines about them making box office records for R-rated movies had barely gone out the door
Yeah.
when they announced this.
Yes, they made this odd announcement here.
He is not Iron Man.
No, he he is Doctor Doom.
As
Uh,
Daniel, when I linked you the Twitter post about this, what was your immediate reaction?
my immediate reaction was to dust off an old classic. Is this an out of season April Fool's joke?
Yes. All right. So in case you've been living under a rock, they decided to back up the Brinks truck and pay Robert Downey Jr. to come back to the MCU in an attempt to save it, and he is playing Doctor Doom.
Yeah. Which I still don't know how they're going to pull this off.
Also, hi, Chengus.
Oh yeah, hang Chingus. Yeah. Yes, we'll be getting to that here in a little bit.
That's going to be our first review. But so, all right. So let's talk about this. Um, this is clearly meaning that multiverse shenanigans are still happening. I would think.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
You might say, aren't people constantly showing that they're tired of the multiverse? I would counter, are they?
Yes.
Because when you think about it, in phases 4 and 5, the Marvel movies that have been the most successful are the ones that did lean into the multiverse.
Yeah. Spider-Man: No Way Home. Um,
Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness,
yeah. And
and Deadpool, Wolverine.
yeah. Yes, and so clearly the bigwigs over at Marvel think that that's what people want.
Right. Which it's where you could get into real trouble if you just look at the data without actually applying any analysis to it. Because what's really going on is that the first off, plenty of flopped projects also invoked the multiverse, like the Marvels ended with their X-Men cameo.
Yeah.
Uh, Ant-Man leaned heavily into there being a whole bunch of different versions of Kang,
Yeah.
who has now been unceremoniously Kang. What are you talking about? There never was a Kang. Shut up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, here's the thing: is it's dangerous. Like as much as people clearly didn't care about Kang, just shuffling him off and not doing anything with him is dangerous because the few people who were watching everything religiously, you've now just told them, by the way, if something doesn't work out, we're just going to abandon it. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Ridiculous.
Yeah. But let's talk about Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom in specific.
Yeah. 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 I'm curious, like if he's Victor Von Doom or if he's like another version of Tony Stark who becomes Doctor Doom.
Right. Um, so I've heard various speculations. One speculation is that he's like an alternate version of Tony who has been possessed by Doctor Doom,
Uh,
which is a possibility.
yeah. Yeah.
People did point to, of course, it's you can tell who actually reads the comic books because they apparently did a what if story called "Demon in the Armor," where Doctor Doom did actually possess Tony's body. But there's an alternate universe where they were call it like Tony was his college roommate instead of Reed,
Oh, yeah.
and that happened for some reason.
Hmm.
But like that's a story from like 5 years ago tops. So it
Yeah.
strikes me as was the story fed to Marvel to try to set the groundwork for it well in advance?
Probably. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, like in a vacuum, imagine that you had an alternate universe where Robert Downey Jr. was never Iron Man, and somebody else had been Iron Man. The character lived and died, and as Fantastic Four is getting integrated into Marvel, Robert Downey Jr. is tapped to play Doctor Doom.
Yeah.
I think in that vacuum, uh, he's proven to have enough range that I think he could pull it off.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
But it would be like having. It's confusing enough when you have the same actor with multiple characters when they're minor parts.
Yeah. Yeah, and the MCU has done that, by the way. They did that with I can't remember the actress's name, but she was in Eternals, and then but before that, she was in Captain Marvel as one of
Mm,
the aliens. So, like,
okay.
yeah.
Was Jaimon Hansu in two Marvel things too?
Um, I think he was just in Guardians.
Or was he in two DC things? I think he might have, because he was definitely in the Shazam movies, but I think he was also.
Right. I can't remember.
Maybe I'm just getting twisted because he was also in Rebel Moon.
Probably, yeah, that might be it.
Eh, But you don't do that with major characters. It's kind of like if they cast Henry Cavill in the new DC universe to play opposite Superman as, I don't know, Zod or something like that.
Yeah.
You're going to confuse the normies.
Yeah.
And it's a needless confusion.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
as I'm looking at this is clearly not going to be the final costume. This is just a comfortable-ish suit that evokes the costume that RDJ can wear to the convention.
Yeah. 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 I'm sure it'll be more. It'll probably be more in line with the comic book representation.
Right. The other problem is that, well, on the one hand, he could probably pull out the roll off. They're not going to let him hide his face, and they're not going to. And the thing with Doctor Doom is that there are a couple different variants of what's wrong with his face.
Hmm.
I've heard like in some continuities that there's actually like he just has a small scar on his face from his failed experiment, but he covers his face because it is a constant reminder that Reed was right, even though it's like a small scratch.
Oh. Okay.
In other things, his face is so horrifying that he took off his mask and uh, made somebody who himself had a scarred face like just quaver in terror.
Uh. and uh and and Ninja. Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Oh.
Uh, then the third version, which I almost like, just because it is very fitting for somebody as vainglorious as Doom, is that it started off as a small scar, but when the monks in Tibet made him the mask to cover his face, he didn't wait for it to properly cool down and ended up.
Melted to his face.
Yeah. Um, but they're never going to they have allegedly paid RDJ more than $100 million plus a bunch of perks to come in back for 3 movies.
Oh. Well, that explains why he came back.
Yes, like you are not going to let him be maskless for these movies.
Right. Yeah.
And the other thing is that by doing this, you have guaranteed that Doctor Doom is going to be more of a Spider-Man thing than a Fantastic
Fantastic.
Four thing.
Yeah.
Because it seems like they also kind of announced the Fantastic Four. Some people have taken issue with the new title, "Fly Me to the Moon."
Mm.
It's a little bit wordy, but it does kind of make sense. Like you're setting it in the space race. That's clearly the Fantastic Four's natural home.
Yeah. Although I'm a little surprised that I wonder if they had to pay off Sinatra's estate to call it that.
Good question. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
but it's from the sounds of it, they're probably going to get time lost and show up in the present, which explains why. Anything in the MCU, you have to explain. Okay, where were you during the snap? And why
Mhm.
didn't you show up to help?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's one of the critical problems with the Eternals, especially because the Eternals were supposed to be guardians of the whole human race.
Yeah, and they
Or should
just
I say,
yeah.
guardians of the planet, trying to make humanity flourish.
Yeah, and they were just kind of like, "Where were you during the snap? The what now? I don't know what you're talking about."
Uh, And Ninja says apparently it's technically in an alternate Earth where the 1950s remains to the modern day.
Hmm.
Mm.
Okay.
Either way.
Yeah.
Uh, so I don't think I'm too enthused by this. It
Yeah.
seems like that's the typical reaction online.
Yeah. Very meh. Or they're like Ninja. Hell no.
Right. Like you have invited more problems than you have solved with this idea.
Yeah. 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 And you could definitely see it as an act of desperation on the part of Marvel.
And it's weird that they chose to do this the day after Deadpool and Wolverine dropped and made all the money.
Yeah.
But that's because and I talked with somebody at work who had seen it. I intend to. I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah. Me too.
Um, yeah, it does sound like it's like a love letter and swan song to the Fox era of Marvel stuff.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
what got Kickstarted with Blade and onward,
Oh. Okay.
which means that you don't really have another. This is like another take at the across the Spider-Man 3 thing.
Yeah.
You don't have that many, or you have no other continuities that you can nostalgia mine like this.
Right. Yeah.
So I guess it makes sense that they would want to look forward, but yeah,
Yeah.
so my bias, not enthused by the MCU anymore anyway.
Hmm.
Um, Frankly, the MCU movies I have seen post Endgame have not wowed me at all. They've been meh at best, and I don't think this is a sign of improvement.
No, I don't either. Yeah.
So let that set the tone for the rest of today for the most part.